Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
Hi, I'm Jenny McCafferty with the Michigan Golfer, and we are thrilled today to have the one and only Keith Gornick, who knows everything about the history of golf in Gaylord. How are you doing, Keith?
Well, you flatter me, Jenny.
That was the idea.
Oh gosh, what an introduction! And while it is a great honor to see you and Art again. It's always, our friendships go back a while, so long, and I wish I knew everything about golf in Gaylord. I certainly don't, but do know a few things about a few places, and it's been great fun over the years to be in Gaylord and involved with the golf industry, and certainly have great friends such as yourself and Art, and so many great people.
We have so many wonderful memories of golf here in Gaylord, especially at the Tribute and the Classic. And our mission here today is to continue our series of golf course architects. And one of the great ones is the designer of the Classic. His name is William Diddel. And your father is the one who found him. Can you tell us what you know about Alan Gornick and the real beginning of golf here in Gaylord?
Well, there were certainly there was golf in Gaylord prior to William Diddel designing a course for my late father at what was then known as Hidden Valley. But as it relates to Hidden Valley and William Diddel in particular, when the Otsego Ski Club's founder, Donald McLouth, passed away in 1954, the property was put up for sale. And my dad, who was then General Tax Counsel worldwide for Ford Motor Company, an advisor to the Ford family, a native of Colorado, and thus his love of northern Michigan. So when he was a member of the ski club, known as Otsego Ski Club, at the resort, which was known as Hidden Valley. When that became available, my dad said, well, I like this winter format, this private club, family-oriented format, and I'll buy it. But for it to really continue and thrive, not only for the winter seasons, but particularly the employees and the community, it really has to be turned into a year-round resort. And what a year-round resort would entail would be an 18-hole golf course. So with that, my dad purchased Hidden Valley, home of the Otsego Ski Club, in 1955, a year after Don McLouth's passing, and commissioned, cast about, as I understand it, I was 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old at the time, and as I understand it, cast about looking for really renowned architects, and came across William Diddel, whom he struck up a friendship with, not only professionally but personally, and engaged Bill Diddel and his team to, as my dad always referred to him as Bill Diddel, to design the first golf course at Hidden Valley. So construction began, design in 1956, along with construction, and resulting in an 18-hole golf course, which was then known as Hidden Valley Golf Club. The name The Classic came along a little bit later, when we were further down the line, and added at one point, while we were waiting for approvals of the Tribute Golf Course, which I had Gary Koch and Rick Robbins build. We opened that, the press day, as we were just conversing about, was 3 days after the attacks of 9/11. But prior to that, while we were waiting for approvals from the DNR and all of the other agencies to gain permission to build the tribute, you may recall that we purchased the Loon Golf Course, as well as engaged in a long-term lease of the Lakes Golf Course near Mishaway. So we had 54 holes of golf. Mike Husby was was a great guy and a dear friend of all of ours. Was our head golf pro and part of the Hidden Valley 54-hole golf package. And then approval came along for the tribute. But when we added the Loon and the Lakes, we really, more than the name Hidden Valley Golf Club, we decided on the Classic, because it was a classic resort-style golf course designed by Bill Diddel, and a great architect. And the course has stood the test of time.
Oh, it has. And one thing that I think is so cool is the tribute is in absolute contrast to the Classic. I mean, they're about as different as two golf courses can be in Michigan, I think. I mean, the Classic is, it's parkland, and I want to quote from William Diddel here.
Sure.
About him. Bill was a master at routing a golf course using the natural terrain to provide definition and strategy. So that word natural is something that I always think about when I think about the Classic.
Well, the classic certainly embodies that, and I think William Diddle certainly utilized all the tools in his toolbox, if you will, when he designed the Classic. And one of the key points, he recognized that this was to be a resort golf course, and that it should be available for all the guests who want to golf, but that it should not only entail the natural beauty, of which there's plenty out there, but also require the golfer of whatever skill level to utilize every bag in their every club in their bag. And when it was originally designed for the equipment that existed in the mid-50s, everything was well placed. The roughs, as I understand it, and looking at over the years at some of the specs that were written out by Mr. Diddle, he wanted the rough to be fairly high. He really wanted the course to have its definitions, and bunkers to be well placed, and designed it that way. And many of those, the philosophy that Bill Diddle had, that were handed down to me by my dad through conversation, father-son conversations, and so on, were really utilized in part of the guidelines that Gary Koch and Rick Robbins were given with the tribute. Certainly a much larger expanse. The tribute has a much larger expanse of land, roughly 1,100 acres that were given. It cannot be played as a 9-hole course, which the Classic can. But that it must be available for young kids. We have to have some beginners tees in the forefront. We need some tees in the back for the really macho long hitters, and everything in between, so that both courses ultimately, and it was really using a lot of the philosophy, at least that I handed to Gary Koch and Rick Robbins, that listen, this is a resort course, and this isn't about, say, the owner, or it isn't about the golf pro or what have you. It's about the guests and their ability to enjoy the course and come back again, and that helps the employees. It keeps the place going, and it draws people back not only to the golf course itself, but the resort, the community, and so on and so forth. It's playability, and William Diddle understood that, and it seems to run, and correct me if I'm wrong, in your study of him as an architect, but it really seems to run true through all of the courses that I know of that William Diddel designed and built. That it's about playability. It isn't so much about ego.
That probably has something to do with the fact that he was engaged to build upwards of 270 golf courses. So people must have liked what he was doing.
Absolutely. And for some reason, people must have enjoyed playing his courses. Somehow it worked.
Well, he was such an interesting guy. He was really quite a prolific builder before the Depression. And when the Depression came along, during the 10 years of the Depression, I worked on the farm. And when the Public Works Administration gave us a course to put together, we did it with a shovel and a wheelbarrow. It's just hard to imagine that. And he says, they gave us those jobs just so we didn't have to stop eating. And when you go out and build a golf course with nothing but a shovel and a wheelbarrow, you're working for a long time.
I would think so. And what incredible dedication. And I mean, what an incredible chapter of history in our country, and really what became a worldwide depression as well. But here's a great story.
Well, he was such a character. He lived for 100 years. And I guess your father knew him pretty well, and you met him.
I met him. I have a vague recollection of meeting him. This would have been 1959 or so, and he was in the area, and came up here, and he and my dad and some others played golf, and before they teed up, I rode my bike up to the first tee, and hi Dad, and with my buddies and all this kind of thing, and probably more interested in getting a couple of quarters or something for pop and candies and all this than meeting a golf course architect. But I do recall meeting Mr. Diddel and shaking his hand and realizing, this is the man who designed our golf course.
That he was playing with your dad, because he was quite an accomplished player. I mean,
my father was not.
Oh, okay. Maybe they did alternate shot or something. Who knows?
Probably so.
But he won tournaments as early as 16 years old, and he won many tournaments and champions throughout his life. And in fact, when he was 86, he was still playing scratch golf. He shot a 74. Just like, who does that? Right, exactly. And he was also a founder of the American Society of Golf Course Architects, which itself is pretty cool because, I don't know if he had anything to do with the plaid jackets, but it's still the society, and it's not easy to get in. You have to design 5 courses or something.
Very prestigious.
Yes, prestigious. Exactly. Yeah. And so he was amazing. And there's another thing that really strikes me about how important he was. He was inducted into the American Seniors Hall of Fame with Chick Evans, Dwight Eisenhower, Robert Trent Jones, and Francis Ouimet. Can you imagine? What company?
Well, yeah. It leaves one speechless, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah, it really does. So he really got around and really got to know a lot of people, and obviously made an impression.
Well, he was, looking back, he was really quite a pioneer, as were those other individuals, and in a unique niche of society. And what became, the golf industry, those were the days long before anyone thought that there would be such a thing as a golf industry. What with all the equipment and everything that we have today.
And I think you basically nailed it with the idea that he designed courses for champion elite players and beginners. That was his philosophy, and he passed it on to the folks who built the tribute, or you passed it on to them. So you've had a lot to do with that yourself.
Well, the real tribute to the tribute, if you will, in its design, goes to Gary Koch and Rick Robbins. The philosophy of what a golf course should be, and certainly as I wanted a golf course to be for our resort, the philosophical points were discussed at length amongst the three of us. And we really, all three, honed in on basically the focus that William Diddel had, and that here we are. I mean, people should draw beginners into the game. It should reward the experienced golfers, and it should be a source of pleasure for the average golfer who's coming to Northern Michigan to recreate, not to frustrate or...
And your father, having the insight to make a year-round resort out of what had just been a ski club, is hugely responsible for really many other ski places deciding to build golf courses.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Certainly Shanty Creek, which was started by a person who had been a group of people who had been members of Otsego Ski Club, but wanted to build their own facility where it is now, was an offshoot of that. And many other resorts with golf courses. Of course, there were golf courses on Mackinac Island, and we had the old Gaylord Country Club here, the original Gaylord Country Club that was here prior to the others. But it was really sort of a beginning of what turned into a large business community, golf business community. In Northern Michigan, and certainly here in the Gaylord area, the Gaylord Golf Mecca, and all that has become.
So this is almost the center of the ripple that became golf in Northern Michigan.
An interesting way of looking at it, but I would not disagree with that. I think you're right, Jenny, and really the impact of the resort, the Hidden Valley, as it's generically known, but what's now known as the Otsego Resort. The earliest days of downhill skiing in Michigan, very early days of golf in Northern Michigan, early days of the fully four-season resorts in Northern Michigan. It was there at the beginning, and the ripple effect is there.
And I think one other word we want to bring in, and I think Diddel is hugely responsible for this in terms of golf, all the golf courses he designed, is fun. What's more fun than playing the classic Diddel's course, and it's pretty much straight, and then you come to number 8. That's a big hill.
That's a big hill.
And it's a surprise and a challenge, and it's fun because you're going to come back next time and play it a different way.
Yes, that's true. and it's really the first full, on hole number 8 of the Classic, it's really the first full exposure to the Hidden Valley. It really is there, and certainly if there's any sort of wind coming out of the northeast and coming up the gully from the valley, that can create all sorts of havoc with an otherwise fabulous shot. And we've all seen it. We've all been there and done that.
I'd be real surprised if pars were common on that hole.
I don't think so. But profanity at times, we might hear it.
Well, you know, I'm thinking it's time to get out there and get my clothes and play. Keith, this has been a treat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. And as always, great to have you with us, and great to see you again. And Art, who's behind the camera here, and what great friends. And thanks for coming by. And really, this is so neat that you're following through and really putting down the histories of not only William Diddel, but so many other fine architects in the great game of golf.